The first bullet shattered the windshield before Hannah Reed had even seen the vineyard. Glass exploded across the dashboard of the rented Fiat, glittering in the afternoon sun like ice. Hannah screamed and jerked the steering wheel. The small car swerved across the narrow Tuscan road, one tire scraping the edge of a steep olive-covered ravine. A black SUV appeared in the rear-view mirror, then another. Her heart struck her ribs with such force that breathing became painful. Hannah had been in Italy for less than 3 hours. She had no enemies. She had no money worth stealing. And until that morning, she had believed the most dangerous part of her journey would be driving a manual transmission through unfamiliar hills. Another gunshot cracked through the air. The passenger's side mirror vanished. Hannah ducked instinctively, her dark auburn hair falling over her face as she pressed the accelerator. The Fiat groaned, barely climbing the hill. Cypress trees blurred past her. Beyond them stretched rows of grapevines under a golden September sky, peaceful and untouched, as if the violence pursuing her belonged to another world. Her phone had lost its signal 10 minutes earlier. The navigation screen showed a single blue line winding toward the property she had inherited from an uncle she had never met. Tenuta Belladonna Estate. The name had sounded romantic when the Boston attorney read it from the will. Now, it sounded like a grave. A third vehicle emerged from a side road ahead. Hannah slammed on the brakes. The Fiat spun sideways. Tires screamed against gravel. The SUV behind her struck the rear bumper and sent her car sliding toward a stone wall. Men in dark jackets climbed out of the vehicles. They carried rifles. Hannah stared through the fractured windshield, unable to understand what she was seeing. One man raised his weapon and aimed directly at her. Before he could fire, a black armored sedan burst around the bend. It struck him hard enough to throw him across the road. The sedan stopped between Hannah and the gunman. Its rear door opened. A tall man stepped out. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie. The jacket fitted perfectly across broad shoulders. His black hair was swept back from a severe face, and there was no panic in his movements. No hesitation. He looked at the armed men with the cold recognition of someone who had expected them. The first gunman fired. The stranger turned slightly and shot him once in the chest. Everything that followed happened with terrifying precision. Men emerged from 2 more vehicles behind the sedan. They moved like soldiers, surrounding Hannah's car as gunfire erupted across the hillside. The stranger remained in the open, directing them with short commands in Italian. A bullet struck the stone wall beside Hannah's window. She covered her head. The driver's door was ripped open. The stranger seized her wrist. "Move." His voice was deep, calm, and utterly without fear. Hannah resisted on instinct. "Who are you?" A bullet pierced the seat where her shoulder had been seconds earlier. The man pulled her from the car and shielded her with his body. One arm locked around her waist as he fired over her shoulder. Hannah felt the hard line of a weapon beneath his jacket and the solid warmth of him against her back. "Ask later," he said. "Survive now." He dragged her toward the armored sedan. Hannah stumbled over broken glass. Her ankle twisted, and pain shot up her leg. The man caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her as though she weighed nothing. For one suspended second, she saw his face clearly. He was perhaps 38, olive-skinned, beautiful in a way that felt dangerous rather than inviting. A faint scar crossed his left eyebrow, and his eyes were so dark they appeared almost black. He looked down at her as if he already knew exactly who she was. That frightened her more than the gunfire. He placed her in the back seat, climbed in beside her, and pulled the door shut. The sedan accelerated. Hannah twisted around. Through the rear window, she saw men fighting among the vines, black suits moving against green rose and sunlit dust. "My luggage," she whispered. The stranger stared at her. "My passport was in the car. You will receive another." "That isn't the point." "It is precisely the point. Everything can be replaced, Except you. His answer was so controlled, so absolute, that Hannah fell silent. The vehicle turned sharply onto a private road. She gripped the leather seat. Who were those people? The man looked toward the passing landscape. Men who believed you would arrive without protection. Protection? Hannah stared at him. You knew I was coming? Yes. How? I know every person who enters this valley when their arrival threatens to start a war. Her mouth went dry. My rival? The man finally turned his eyes toward her. You inherited Tenuta Belladonna. Yes. That makes you the most dangerous woman in Tuscany. Hannah gave a breathless laugh that sounded close to panic. I restore colonial records for a museum in Boston. Today you do. What does that mean? It means your old life ended when you signed the inheritance papers. She studied him, searching for some sign that this was an elaborate mistake. Who are you? The smallest pause passed between them. My name is Luca De Santis. The name meant nothing to Hannah, but the driver glanced at him in the mirror, with the involuntary caution of a man hearing a loaded weapon mentioned aloud. Luca noticed. His expression did not change. Hannah leaned toward the opposite door. Take me to the police. No, I'm an American citizen. I'm aware. You cannot refuse to let me speak to the police. I can refuse anything that gets you killed. You expect me to trust you after your men just shot people on a public road. They shot the people trying to execute you. That does not make you safe. No, Luca said quietly. It makes me necessary. The sedan passed through iron gates guarded by men with automatic weapons. Beyond them stood a vast stone villa overlooking the valley. It was less a home than a fortress disguised as beauty. Pale limestone walls glowed beneath the late afternoon sun. Cypress trees lined the drive. Fountains reflected a cloudless sky. On the terraces, white roses climbed ancient walls, their elegance made sinister by the armed men positioned beneath them. Hannah stared through the window. This is your house? One of them. Of course it is. Luca glanced at her. You are angry. I've been shot at, kidnapped, and informed that my life is over. Anger seems reasonable. You have not been kidnapped. Are you going to let me leave? No. Then, I have disappointing news about the definition of kidnapping. Something almost human moved in his expression. Not amusement exactly, but surprise. The sedan stopped. Luca stepped out, then offered her his hand. Hannah looked at it. His fingers were long, clean, steady. The same hand had killed a man less than 15 minutes earlier. I can walk. You injured your ankle. I can still walk. She stepped from the car and immediately faltered. Luca caught her elbow. Hannah pulled away. His jaw tightened, but he let her go. That restraint unsettled her. He looked like a man accustomed to taking whatever he wanted. Yet he did not touch her again. Inside the villa, polished stone floors stretched beneath vaulted ceilings. Renaissance paintings lined the walls. There were no family photographs, no scattered possessions, nothing that suggested ordinary life. The rooms were luxurious, but emotionally empty. A woman in her 60s approached them. Her silver hair was pinned neatly at her neck. This is Signora Conti, Luca said. She will provide whatever you require. I require a car. No, a phone. You will have one with a secured line. My passport. It will be recovered if possible. Hannah faced him fully. At 5'6", she had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. She was suddenly aware of her travel-wrinkled navy dress, the softness of her body beneath it, the smear of blood on her arm from broken glass. Luca's gaze moved over her injuries without judgment, but with an intensity that made her skin tighten. What do you want from me? She asked. The same thing everyone else wants. The vineyard. What is beneath it? Hannah's anger faltered. Beneath it. Luca's eyes rested on hers. Your uncle did not leave you a vineyard because he was sentimental. I never met him. I know. Then why me? That, Luca said, is the question 5 families are willing to kill you to answer. He turned and walked away. Hannah watched him disappear through a carved doorway. For the first time since the bullet struck her car, she felt something colder than fear. She felt curiosity. And curiosity, her father had once warned her, was how locked doors convinced intelligent people to open them. By nightfall, Hannah had learned 3 things. First, every exterior door in the villa was guarded. Second, the windows in her bedroom were reinforced. Third, Luca De Santis had no intention of explaining anything. A doctor cleaned the cuts on her arms and wrapped her ankle. Signora Conti brought her a simple ivory blouse and black trousers that fit with suspicious accuracy. Hannah held them up. "How did you know my size?" The older woman looked uncomfortable. "Mr. De Santis instructed us." "When?" "Before you arrived." The answer followed Hannah into dinner. Luca sat at the far end of a table built for 20. Candlelight moved across the sharp planes of his face. His suit jacket was gone, revealing a black shirt rolled to his forearms. A watch gleamed at his wrist. There was no visible weapon, but Hannah was certain one remained within reach. She took the chair opposite him. "You bought clothes for me before I reached Italy." "Yes." "You knew my size." "Yes." "You knew which flight I was taking." "Yes." "You sent men to follow me, to protect you." "How long have you been watching me?" Luca lifted his wine, but did not drink. "That depends on what you consider watching." Hannah placed her fork down. "That is an alarming answer. You were never under surveillance inside your home. That is not reassuring. You are alive. You keep using that as an argument for everything. It is an excellent argument." She leaned forward. "Did you arrange the inheritance?" "No." "Did you know my uncle?" "Yes." "Did you kill him?" The room became still. Even Signora Conti stopped moving near the wall. Luca's gaze cooled. "No." "Would you tell me if you had?" "Yes." "Why should I believe that?" "Because lying to you would require me to believe I need your approval." The cruelty of the answer landed cleanly. Hannah sat back. Luca watched the hurt pass across her face, and something in his expression shifted. He looked away first. "Your uncle died of pancreatic cancer," he said. "He spent the final 2 years of his life preparing for your arrival. Why didn't he contact me?" "He believed contact would expose you." "To what?" "To this." Luca gestured toward the guarded villa. The men beyond the terrace doors. The dark valley where gunfire had echoed hours earlier. Hannah looked down at her plate. "My father never spoke about Italy." "No." The certainty in Luca's voice made her lift her eyes. "You knew my father." Luca did not answer. The silence confirmed it. Hannah stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "How?" "Sit down." "No." "Hannah." The sound of her name in his voice was low and commanding. She hated the way it moved through her. "You knew him," she said. "You knew my father, and you brought me here without telling me. I did not bring you here. Your uncle did. You knew this would happen. I knew it was possible. And you still let me get on that plane. I had men at the airport, on the highway, and at the vineyard. Men who failed." His face hardened. "The men responsible for that failure will not repeat it." She understood the meaning beneath his words. A chill moved through her. "My father was a history professor. Your father was many things. He spent 20 years teaching at a community college. He spent the 20 years before that in Italy." Hannah shook her head. "No. You were born in Massachusetts 6 months after he left." "No." "Luca Rose." The movement was unhurried, but the room seemed to contract around him. "Your father's name was not always Daniel Reed." She stared at him. Luca reached into his pocket and placed an old photograph on the table. The picture showed 3 men standing outside a stone church. One was unmistakably Hannah's father, younger by decades, his hair black instead of gray. Beside him stood a broad-shouldered man with Luca's eyes. Between them was a boy of perhaps 9 years old. The boy had a scar across his left eyebrow. Hannah looked from the photograph to Luca. "That's you." "Yes. My father knew you when you were a child. He saved my life when I was 1. The room blurred around her. Luca came closer but stopped several feet away, leaving distance between them. My father led the De Santis family, he said. Daniel Reed. Then Daniele Rinaldi was his legal advisor, strategist, and closest friend. Hannah looked at the photograph again. Her father had told her bedtime stories about Italian kings, ruined monasteries, and vineyards that survived wars. He had made pasta every Sunday and claimed the recipes came from a roommate in graduate school. He had never mentioned another name or a mafia family. What did he do for your father? What was necessary? That is not an answer. It is the only one I will give tonight. She pushed the photograph toward him. You do not get to decide how much truth I can handle. No, Luca said. I decide how much truth can be spoken inside a house that may already contain a traitor. The words silenced her. He looked toward the walls. Hidden surveillance. Betrayal. A threat not only outside the villa but within it. Hannah wrapped her arms around herself. Who attacked me? At least 2 families. Possibly 3. Why do they think I know anything? They do not believe you know. They believe you possess. The vineyard. The archive beneath it. She remembered his words in the car. What kind of archive? Luca's expression became unreadable. Evidence. Of what? Everything. He stepped closer. Close enough that Hannah caught the scent of cedar and smoke on his skin. Murders disguised as accidents. Judges purchased. Elections manipulated. Girls moved through ports under false names. Police officers who disappeared after refusing bribes. Bank accounts. Recordings. Photographs. Signed orders. Hannah felt sick. You've seen it? No. Then how do you know? Because your father helped create it. The revelation struck harder than the bullets. Hannah turned away. For years, she had built her understanding of the world around a gentleman who repaired old books, fed stray cats, and cried when she left for college. Now Luca was asking her to believe that the same man had preserved the crimes of mafia families. Why would he do that? To destroy them when the time came. She faced him again. And did it? The time never came. Why? Because your father vanished before he could open the archive. My father was assassinated 3 weeks later. And you think the evidence is still there? I know it is. Then, take it. I cannot. Why not? The estate belongs to you. The archive was designed with a legal and mechanical lock requiring the heir named in your uncle's will. Hannah laughed once, without humor. So that's why you need me. Yes. At least he did not pretend otherwise. And once I open it, I will secure the evidence. Secure it for whom? For myself. The honesty frightened her. You want leverage. Over the other families. I want the men who murdered my father kneeling before they die. There it was. Not justice. Revenge. The distinction mattered. Hannah moved toward the door. You're no different from them. Luca's voice followed her. I never said I was. She stopped but did not turn around. Then why should I help you? Because the people who attacked you today will not stop. Because your uncle's will became public 48 hours ago. Because every criminal organization between Florence and Rome now knows Daniel Reed's daughter holds the key to their destruction. Hannah looked back. Luca stood in the candlelight, powerful and alone. And because, he added, the only man they fear more than the truth beneath that vineyard is me. She left without answering. At 2 a.m, Hannah attempted her first escape. She wore the black trousers, a borrowed sweater, and flat shoes Signora Conti had left outside her room. She waited until the guards changed positions, then slipped through a service corridor and entered the kitchens. The house was quiet. She found a rear door leading to a courtyard. It was unlocked. That should have warned her. Hannah crossed between rows of lemon trees and climbed a low wall into the gardens. Beyond the hedges lay a gravel road descending toward the village. She had taken fewer than 20 steps when a voice emerged from the darkness. The road is mined with motion sensors. Hannah froze. Luca sat on a stone bench beneath an olive tree. He wore no jacket. Moonlight touched the open collar of his black shirt. A glass of whiskey rested in one hand. "You left the door unlocked," she said. "Yes." "You knew I would run." "Yes." "And you're just sitting here?" "I wanted to see which direction you chose." "Why?" "People reveal themselves when they believe no one is watching." Anger flared through her. "Is everything a test to you?" "Most things." "And what did I reveal?" "You chose the village road rather than the garage." "Meaning?" "You are frightened. Not foolish. You knew taking a car would alert the guards faster." Hannah folded her arms. "Congratulations. You've successfully analyzed your prisoner." Luca stood. He was even more intimidating at night, his silhouette cutting across the silver landscape. "You are not my prisoner. Then let me leave." "No. Your argument is becoming repetitive. So are your escape attempts. This was my first. It will not be your last." He approached slowly. Hannah forced herself not to step backward. "What happens if I make it past your guards?" she asked. "You will be taken before reaching the village." "By whom?" "Vieri's men. Or Belandi's. Perhaps Corsetti's if they arrive tonight." "And you expect me to remain in your house indefinitely?" "Until I eliminate the threat." "You mean, until I open the archive?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." "Then we should go to the vineyard." "No." "Why not?" "The road is compromised." "It was compromised this afternoon. There are additional risks." "Sujas?" "Someone knew your exact route from the airport." Hannah understood. "Someone close to you betrayed us." "Yes." The word carried no visible emotion, but something colder moved beneath it. "How many people knew?" 12. "And you trust none of them?" "I trust 3, which means 9 suspects." 8. She frowned. "What happened to the 9th?" Luca took a slow drink. Hannah did not ask again. She moved past him toward the villa. His hand closed gently around her wrist. Her body reacted before her mind did. She turned. They stood very close. Luca looked down at where his fingers circled her skin. His grip was firm but not painful. The night air seemed suddenly warmer. "What?" she whispered. His eyes lifted to hers. "Do not leave the house alone again." "Is that a threat?" "No." "Then what is it?" For the first time, the control in his face thinned. "A request I am not accustomed to making." Hannah's heartbeat changed. Luca released her immediately. He stepped away as though the contact had crossed a boundary. Neither of them understood. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice colder again, "you will see the vineyard." At sunrise, 10 black vehicles left the De Santis estate. Hannah rode in the center car beside Luca. Armed men occupied the vehicles ahead and behind them. A helicopter moved across the sky. "You travel like a president," she said. "Presidents travel with less risk." She looked at him. That sounded arrogant. It was arithmetic. Despite herself, Hannah almost smiled. Luca noticed. The faint softening of her mouth held his attention longer than it should have. She turned toward the window. The valley opened before them, breathtaking beneath the morning light. Vineyards rolled over the hills in geometric rows. Stone farmhouses stood among olive groves. In the distance, a medieval village rose around a bell tower. Tenuta Belladonna appeared beyond a line of cypress trees. The estate was older and smaller than Luca's villa, but infinitely warmer. Honey-colored stone walls were covered in ivy. Faded blue shutters framed tall windows. The main house overlooked acres of neglected vines, their leaves turning copper in the early autumn. Hannah felt an unexpected ache. This place belonged to her, not because she had earned it or chosen it, but because a dead man she had never met had tied her life to it. The convoy stopped in the courtyard. Luca's men spread across the property. Hannah stepped from the car. A breeze carried the scent of earth, rosemary, and ripe grapes. For one quiet moment, she forgot the guns. Then she saw the bullet holes in the front door. Luca followed her gaze. "They searched the house last night." You said the archive couldn't be opened without me. It can still be destroyed. They entered together. The interior had been ransacked. Drawers lay overturned. Paintings had been cut from their frames. Books were scattered across the floor. Hannah crouched beside a broken photograph. It showed her uncle standing among vineyard workers. He was thin, silver-haired, and smiling. Beside him stood Hannah's father, older than in Luca's photograph, but unmistakable. On the back, written in her father's handwriting, were 4 words. For Hannah, when ready. Her throat tightened. Luca watched her silently. "Did my father come here after I was born?" she asked. "Once. When? When you were 6. Hannah remembered being 6. Her father had disappeared for 2 weeks, claiming he was attending an academic conference in Geneva. He had returned with a small wooden music box painted with red flowers. She still owned it. Why didn't he tell me? To protect you. Everyone keeps making decisions for me and calling it protection. Luca's gaze lowered. I know. The answer surprised her. Before she could respond, a man entered the room. He was in his early 40s, blonde, polished, dressed in a tan suit that looked too elegant for a crime scene. Luca. Luca's entire body changed. He did not reach for a weapon, yet danger entered the room as clearly as another person. Matteo. The blonde man smiled at Hannah. Miss Reed. Matteo Bellandi. He extended a hand. Luca stepped between them. Matteo's smile widened. How protective, how unexpected, Luca replied. You entering a property without permission. The gate was open. My men opened it because they were under orders not to kill you until I arrived. Hannah looked between them. Matteo appeared amused rather than threatened. The Bellandi family has worked these hills for 2 centuries, he said to Hannah. We were close friends of your uncle. My uncle's house was attacked last night. Ah, tragedie. Did you do it? Matteo laughed softly. Luca did not. She asks direct questions, Matteo said. I like her. You will not like what happens if you continue looking at her. The possessiveness in Luca's voice was unmistakable. Hannah's breath caught. Matteo's gaze moved between them with sudden interest. So the rumors are true. What rumors? Hannah asked. That Luca De Santis has finally discovered something he cannot command without wanting it more. Luca drew his gun. The movement was so fast, Hannah barely saw it. The barrel touched Matteo's chest. Men on both sides raised their weapons. The room filled with the click of safeties. Matteo remained still. Hannah stepped forward. Luca. He did not look at her. Lower the gun. Still nothing. Please. That reached him. His eyes shifted toward her. For 1 tense second, Hannah saw the violence he kept buried beneath perfect control. Then, he lowered the weapon. Matteo adjusted his jacket. Dangerous, he murmured. Not because you can control him, Miss Reed. Because he allowed you to believe you could. He left with his men. Luca watched from the doorway until the vehicles disappeared. You nearly started a shootout inside my house, Hannah said. He threatened you. He flirted with me. For Matteo Bellandi, the difference is negligible. She studied him. Were you jealous? No. You pointed a gun at him. I have pointed guns at men for less. That does not answer the question. Luca turned toward her. His expression was closed again. Jealousy is an emotion experienced by men who believe they can lose what belongs to them. Hannah's pulse stumbled. I do not belong to you. No, he said. But his eyes said something else. The search of the house lasted hours. Hannah used her training as an archivist to examine her uncle's study. The intruders had focused on obvious hiding places. Floorboards, wall safes, desk compartments. Her father had taught her that important documents were rarely hidden where people expected secrecy. They were hidden where no one recognized significance. She studied the shelves. Most of the books were in Italian. Agricultural manuals, religious histories, ledgers. One shelf contained American poetry. Her father had loved Robert Frost. Hannah removed a worn collection. Inside the cover was a hand-drawn map of the estate. At the center of the vineyard, a small chapel had been marked with a red circle. She carried the book to Luca. He examined the map. The chapel collapsed 30 years ago. Then why mark it? It may indicate a tunnel. They drove through the vineyard in an open utility vehicle, accompanied by 6 guards. The path climbed toward a ruined stone chapel at the edge of the property. Only 3 walls remained. Hannah walked among broken columns and wild lavender. Sunlight fell through the missing roof. Near the altar, she found a carving in the stone floor, a belladonna flower. The same flower painted on the music box her father had brought from Europe. Hannah knelt and pressed the center of the carving. Nothing happened. Luca crouched beside her. "May I?" His shoulder brushed hers. The contact was slight, yet Hannah became acutely aware of his nearness. He placed his hand over the carving, feeling the edges. "Pressure mechanism," he murmured. Together they pushed. A section of floor shifted. Beneath it lay a narrow compartment containing a brass key and a sealed envelope. Hannah recognized her name. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter contained only one sentence. "The truth is buried where the wine never sleeps, but trust the sun only when he chooses you over the empire." Hannah read it twice. Luca had gone utterly still. "The sun," she whispered. "You." He stood. "What does it mean?" "I don't know." "You're lying." His face hardened. "Your father enjoyed riddles. My father is telling me not to trust you until you sacrifice something. He had no right. He knew you. He knew a child. He knew what you might become." Luca looked toward the valley. For the first time, Hannah saw not a mafia boss, but the boy in the photograph, standing between 2 fathers who had built a secret capable of destroying them all. "What empire?" she asked softly. Luca's gaze returned to her. "Everything my father left me. And would you give it up?" "No." The answer was immediate, cold, honest. Hannah folded the letter. "Then I shouldn't trust you." "No," Luca said. "You should not." That evening, they remained at the vineyard. Luca's security team sealed the property. Hannah was given her uncle's bedroom, while Luca occupied a room across the hall. Rain began after midnight. It struck the old windows and moved through the vines in silver sheets. Hannah could not sleep. She found Luca in the kitchen, standing before the open doors to the terrace. Lightning illuminated the valley behind him. He held no drink this time, only the old photograph of their fathers. "You carry it with you?" she asked. He slipped it into his pocket. "Yes." "Why?" "To remember the cost of trusting people. That is a lonely reason to keep a photograph. Loneliness is safer than nostalgia." Hannah crossed the room. She had changed into a soft gray nightdress beneath a borrowed robe. Luca's eyes moved over her for a single, uncontrolled second, then returned to her face. The restraint affected her more than open desire would have. "What happened to your father?" she asked. "He was killed outside a courthouse. Were you there?" "Yes." "How old were you?" 70. Hannah waited. Rain filled the silence. "He made me stay in the car," Luca continued. "Your father had warned him not to attend the hearing. My father believed fear would make him weak. And then? A motorcycle stopped beside him. 2 men fired 31 rounds. Hannah felt the brutality of the image. "I'm sorry. I killed both shooters before sunset." She looked at him. "Otsiventen." "Yes." There was no pride in his voice, only fact. "What happened to my father?" Luca's expression changed. "He disappeared, but he came home, eventually. You know what I mean?" He looked toward the storm. "Your father discovered that someone inside the De Santis organization had helped arrange the assassination. He believed the traitor would come after you next. So he ran. He chose you." The words entered Hannah slowly. Not cowardice, not abandonnement. Choice. Her father had left Italy, his name, and perhaps everyone he loved to keep her alive. "Did you hate him for leaving?" "For many years. And now?" Luca looked at her. "Now, I understand him more than I wish to. Thunder rolled across the valley. Hannah stepped closer. "Why have you watched me?" His eyes darkened. "I was told to." "By whom?" "Your uncle." "For how long?" 14 years. She stared at him. "Since I was 18? "Yes." "You knew where I studied?" "Yes." "Where I worked?" "Yes." "The apartment I lived in?" "Yes." A wave of anger and unease moved through her. "Did you have photographs?" Luca said nothing. "That means yes. They were security reports." "Were there photographs of me?" "Yes." "How many?" His silence became an answer. Hannah stepped away. "That isn't protection. That's obsession." "No." "Then, what would you call it?" "At first, obligation." "And later?" Lightning flashed. Luca's control fractured so briefly she might have imagined it. "Later," he said, "I stopped reading the reports because obligation was no longer the reason." Her breath caught. The room seemed to narrow around them. "What was the reason?" He came closer. "Not touching. Never touching. But close enough that she could feel the heat of him. You looked lonely in the photographs." Hannah could not speak. "I knew what it meant," he continued. "To move through rooms where no one saw what was beneath the surface. You felt sorry for me?" "No." His gaze lowered to her mouth. "I wanted to know who made you laugh after the photographs ended." The confession was more intimate than desire. Hannah's heart beat painfully. "And did you?" "Yes." "Who?" "No one consistently." Something possessive entered his voice. She should have been frightened. Part of her was. Another part of her, the part that had spent years being overlooked, underestimated, and treated as though her softness made her less worthy of consuming attention, felt dangerously seen. Luca lifted one hand. His fingers stopped inches from her cheek. He did not touch her. "Why did you stop?" she whispered. "Because if I touch you now, I will not do it gently enough to pretend it means nothing." Her body warmed. "Maybe. I don't want it to mean nothing." Luca's jaw tightened. A shot shattered the terrace window. He moved before the glass hit the floor. Luca drove Hannah down behind the kitchen island, covering her with his body. Gunfire ripped through the doors. His men shouted from the corridor. Luca drew his weapon and fired toward the terrace. Hannah pressed her hands against the stone floor. His body shielded hers completely. One arm locked around her head. "Stay beneath me," he ordered. "What about you? I am exactly where I need to be." Another shot struck the cabinet above them. Luca returned fire. The kitchen filled with smoke, splintered wood, and the smell of gunpowder. Then a grenade rolled across the terrace. Luca saw it. He seized Hannah and lifted her. The explosion threw them through the pantry door. They hit the floor hard. For several seconds, Hannah heard nothing but a high metallic ringing. Luca lay over her. Blood spread across the shoulder of his white shirt. "Luca." He did not move. Panic seized her. "Luca." His eyes opened. "I'm alive. You're bleeding. Not seriously. You don't know that. I know exactly what serious bleeding feels like." He pushed himself upright and pulled her with him. Armed men entered through the ruined kitchen. Luca fired twice. One fell. The other raised his rifle toward Hannah. Luca crossed the room with terrifying speed. He struck the weapon aside, drove the man into the wall, and pressed a knife beneath his jaw. "Who sent you?" The attacker smiled through blood. "Vieri sends his regards." Luca's face became empty. The knife moved. Hannah turned away before she saw the result. Minutes later, De Santis reinforcements secured the house. Luca refused medical treatment until Hannah had been examined. She stood in the ruined hall while a doctor cut the shirt from his shoulder. The bullet had grazed him, leaving a deep wound across the muscle. He did not flinch as it was stitched. Hannah watched from the doorway. Blood stained his chest. Rain blew through the broken windows behind him. Men moved around him waiting for orders, yet Luca's eyes remained fixed only on her. "Come here," he said. She approached slowly. The doctor finished and left. Hannah stood between Luca's knees as he sat on the edge of a table. You were nearly killed. So were you. You covered me. Yes. You didn't hesitate. No. Why? His gaze sharpened. You know why? She thought of her father's letter. Trust the son only when he chooses you over the empire. Protecting her from bullets was not enough. Luca was a man trained to defend valuable assets. She needed to know whether she was a person to him or merely the key to the archive. Before she could ask, one of Luca's men entered. Signore, we found the leak. The man placed a tablet on the table. Security footage showed Signora Conti entering Luca's study and photographing convoy routes. Hannah felt sick. The kind older woman who had dressed her wounds. Luca's expression did not change. Bring her. Signora Conti was escorted into the room. She did not deny it. My son owes the Vieri family money, she said. Tears shone in her eyes. They threatened my grandchildren. You could have come to me, Luca replied. They said you would kill him. I would have paid the debt, and then owned his life. Luca stood. The room went silent. Hannah saw the fear on Signora Conti's face and understood what everyone expected. Execution. Luca looked at Hannah. Her disapproval mattered to him. That realization carried its own kind of power. Take her family to the northern safe house, he ordered. Erase the son's debt. Signora Conti remains under guard until this ends. His lieutenant hesitated. She betrayed you. I am aware. The woman was led away. Hannah stared at Luca. You spared her. I removed a vulnerability. You spared her because I was watching. His eyes met hers. Yes. The honesty struck deep. Does that make me a weakness? Luca stepped closer. It makes you the first person whose opinion has altered my judgment in 20 years. That sounds dangerous. It is. At dawn, they discovered the entrance to the archive. The map from the chapel led not to the wine cellar beneath the main house, but to a sealed fermentation building at the far edge of the vineyard. Behind rows of empty oak barrels stood an ancient stone wall carved with belladonna flowers. Hannah inserted the brass key. Nothing happened. Luca examined the carving. There is another lock. Hannah remembered the music box. She had packed it in her luggage, which Luca's men had recovered from the damaged car. Inside the music box, beneath the velvet lining, she found a circular brass disc engraved with her father's initials. It fit perfectly into the center of the stone door. The wall opened with a deep mechanical groan. Cold air moved from the darkness. Luca ordered his men to remain outside. Why? Hannah asked. Your father trusted no organization completely. Neither do I. They entered alone. A narrow staircase descended beneath the vineyard. Emergency lights flickered to life one by one. At the bottom stood another door. Hannah pressed her palm against the metal plate. A scanner illuminated her hand. A recorded voice spoke from hidden speakers. Her father's voice. Hannah. She stopped breathing. If you are hearing this, then I failed to protect you from the truth. Tears filled her eyes. Luca stood behind her, silent. The man beside you may be Luca De Santis. He will tell you he wants justice. He will believe it when he says it. But vengeance and justice are brothers raised in the same house, and even good men forget which one they have become. Luca's face hardened. The archive belongs to you, Hannah. Not to Luca. Not to any government. Not to the families. You must decide whether truth is used as a weapon or offered as light. The door unlocked. Hannah pushed it open. The hidden chamber extended farther than the main house above. Rows upon rows of wine barrels filled the vast underground space. At first, they appeared ordinary. Then the overhead lights brightened. The wooden fronts were false. Behind them stood black steel safes, hundreds of them. Some bore family names: De Santis, Vieri, Bellandi, Corsetti, Romano. Others were marked with dates spanning 4 decades. Hannah walked forward in stunned silence. Inside glass cabinets lay ledger books, photographs, audio tapes, film reels, hard drives, passports, and sealed evidence bags. It was not an archive. It was a mausoleum built for secrets. She turned slowly. Luca stood in the doorway, blood visible beneath the bandage on his shoulder, a gun in his hand. For a terrible second, the image matched every fear she had carried since arriving in Italy. The Mafia Boss, the locked chamber, the evidence, the isolated woman who alone could open it. "You knew this was here," she said. "Not the scale. You wanted it. Yes. For revenge. Yes." Hannah moved toward the central console. A screen activated. 5 folders appeared. Each contained enough evidence to destroy a family. One file was labeled De Santis Internal Betrayal. Luca saw it. His face changed. Hannah opened the folder. The first document was an audio transcript. She read the names. Luca's father had not been betrayed by an outside family alone. The assassination had been approved by Luca's uncle, Vittorio De Santis, who now served as Luca's most trusted political advisor. Worse, the records showed that Vittorio had ordered Daniel Reed killed after he fled Italy. The date matched the car accident that had taken Hannah's father's life 12 years earlier. Hannah gripped the console. "My father didn't die in an accident." "No." Luca's voice had become deadly quiet. "You knew?" "I suspected. You never told me. I did not have proof. You watched me bury him while suspecting he had been murdered." Luca said nothing. Her grief turned to rage. "You let me believe he fell asleep at the wheel. I was trying to keep you outside this world. You do not get to call ignorance protection. I know. Stop saying that." Her voice echoed through the chamber. Luca absorbed the anger without defending himself. Hannah looked at the De Santis files again. "These records could destroy you too. Yes. Your companies, your politicians, your money. Yes. You still want the archive?" His gaze moved over the evidence. "I want Vittorio." "That isn't what I asked." Before he could answer, the chamber lights went out. Emergency alarms screamed. Luca crossed the space and pushed Hannah behind the central console. Someone breached the estate. Gunfire erupted above them. The stone door began to close automatically. A figure slipped through before it sealed. Matteo Bellandi. He raised both hands. "Do not shoot." Luca aimed at his head. "You have 3 seconds. Vieri has surrounded the vineyard. He brought nearly 60 men. How did he find the entrance?" Matteo looked at Hannah. "Because someone inside this chamber activated a beacon." Hannah glanced at the console. The system had transmitted when she opened the files. Her father's archive had announced its awakening to every family named within it. A countdown appeared on the screen. Archive Release Protocol. 58 minutes. "What happens at 0? She asked. Matteo's face lost its smile. "Every file is transmitted to international law enforcement and the press." Luca studied the screen. "Then why attack?" "To destroy the servers before transmission." Explosions shook dust from the ceiling. Hannah looked at the hundreds of safes. "Can the release be stopped?" "Yes," Matteo said. "By the legal heir. Why would I stop it?" "Because the archive contains more than criminal evidence. It contains names of undercover agents, protected witnesses, judges who secretly cooperated, children born under false identities. Release everything, and innocent people die with the guilty." The moral weight of it settled over her. Her father had not left a simple weapon. He had left a decision no one should have to make alone. Luca looked at her. "What do you need?" The question surprised her. "You're asking me? It is your choice." Matteo laughed bitterly. "How noble. 5 families are about to collapse, and Luca De Santis has discovered democracy." Luca pointed the gun at him, without looking away from Hannah. "Speak again, and you will not live long enough to witness it." Hannah studied the folders. "We separate the files. Release evidence against the leadership. Protect the witnesses. Send copies to multiple agencies. That could take hours, Matteo said. We have 56 minutes. Luca removed his jacket and placed it over the back of a chair. Tell us what to do. For the next 40 minutes, the three of them worked beneath the sounds of war. Hannah navigated the archive system. Her training allowed her to identify document categories and metadata faster than either man. Luca contacted trusted prosecutors in Rome, Paris, London, and Washington through encrypted lines. Matteo provided names of compromised officials who had to be excluded. Above them, De Santis guards fought Vieri's army among the vines. The countdown reached 14 minutes. A new warning appeared. Manual destruction sequence initiated. Someone had entered the secondary control room. Luca checked the floor plan. The control room is beneath the chapel. I'll go, Matteo said. No, you need someone who knows the tunnels. I know them. You have one functioning shoulder. I have two functioning hands. Hannah stood. I'm coming. No. The system requires my authorization. Then authorize it from here. I can't. It says biometric confirmation must occur at the control room. Luca's eyes hardened. You remain behind me. They entered the service tunnel together. Matteo led with a rifle. Hannah followed. Luca stayed so close behind her that she could feel his presence without looking. The tunnel shook with explosions. They reached a junction. Men emerged from the darkness. Gunfire flashed. Luca pulled Hannah against the wall and fired over her shoulder. Matteo killed another attacker. A third rushed forward. Luca took him down with a knife. His wound reopened. Blood spread across his shirt. Luca, keep moving. They reached the stairs beneath the ruined chapel. At the top, sunset burned red across the battlefield. The vineyard was on fire. Rows of vines blazed beneath columns of black smoke. Vehicles burned in the courtyard. Armed men fought between stone walls and shattered barrels. Hannah stared at the destruction of the property she had owned for less than 2 days and felt an unexpected grief. Luca seized her hand. Look at me. She did. Do not look anywhere else. He led her across the chapel ruins. Bullets struck the columns. Luca shielded her, returning fire with one hand. Near the altar, a man stepped from behind the broken wall. He was in his 60s, silver-haired and perfectly dressed despite the chaos. Luca De Santis. Luca stopped. His uncle smiled. You have your father's weakness. Luca raised his gun. Vittorio's men appeared behind Hannah. Weapons surrounded them. Matteo was forced to the ground. Vittorio looked at Hannah. Your father was offered every opportunity to surrender the archive. He chose martyrdom. You murdered him. I corrected a betrayal. Luca's gun remained aimed at his uncle's heart. Vittorio sighed. You think she will choose you once she sees what we are? Once she learns how many graves built your empire? She already knows what I am. No, Hannah said quietly. I know what he has been. Luca looked at her. The distinction reached him. Vittorio's smile faded. Open the control room, he ordered. Hannah glanced at the hidden panel near the altar. No? Vittorio raised his weapon toward Luca. Then he dis. Luca did not move. Hannah felt the old instinct to protect, to negotiate, to surrender herself so no one else would be harmed. But Luca's eyes held hers. Do not. The word passed between them, without sound. Vittorio cocked the gun. Choose. Hannah looked toward the vineyard. Below them stood the empire Luca's father had built, now burning beneath the sunset. She remembered the letter. Trust the sun only when he chooses you over the empire. Luca slowly lowered his weapon. His men, positioned beyond the ruins, could see him. Luca. Vittorio warned. Luca removed a ring from his right hand, the De Santis crest. He threw it into the fire. Every man in the chapel watched. As of this moment, Luca said, his voice carrying through the ruins, the De Santis organization is dissolved. Vittorio stared at him. You cannot dissolve blood. No, but I can destroy everything blood purchased. Luca activated a device on his phone. Across the valley, Explosions erupted, not near people, at warehouses, armored vehicles, communications towers, and fortified compounds belonging to the De Santis Empire. Years of power vanished in fire. His soldiers looked stunned. Luca kept his eyes on Hannah. "My accounts have been transferred to a restitution trust," he said. "Every judge, minister, officer, and businessman under De Santis' control has been named in sealed testimony delivered to prosecutors." Vittorio's face twisted with disbelief. "You destroyed us." Luca's voice remained calm. "I chose her." Hannah's chest tightened so sharply it hurt. Vittorio fired. Luca moved in front of her. The bullet struck him below the ribs. Hannah screamed. Chaos erupted. Matteo rolled, seized a fallen weapon, and shot one of Vittorio's men. De Santis' guards stormed the chapel. Luca fell against Hannah, his blood hot across her hands. Vittorio ran toward the tunnel. Luca tried to rise. "No," Hannah said. "Stay down. He cannot reach the control room. I'll stop him." Luca gripped her wrist. "Hannah." She looked into his face. For the first time, she saw fear there. Not fear of death. Fear for her. "You said the archive was my choice," she whispered. His hand tightened. "Yes. Then trust me." She kissed him. It was not gentle. It was desperate, brief, and filled with every unfinished moment between them. Luca's hand rose to the back of her neck as though instinct overruled pain. When she pulled away, his forehead rested against hers. "Come back to me," he said. It was not a command. It was a plea. Hannah took his gun and entered the tunnel. She found Vittorio in the control room beneath the chapel. He stood before a bank of servers, attempting to initiate the destruction sequence. The countdown showed 3 minutes. "Hannah," he said without turning, "your father made the same mistake. He believed truth mattered more than survival. My father survived long enough to raise me, and died because he could not let the past remain buried. He died because men like you confuse silence with loyalty." Vittorio turned. He held a detonator. "Give me the access code." "No, I will bury all of us beneath this hill." Hannah looked at the console. The archive release required one final biometric scan. She moved slowly toward it. Vittorio raised the detonator. "Stop." She placed her palm on the scanner. Vittorio pressed the button. Nothing happened. Hannah looked at the device in his hand. "My father built this place," she said. "Did you really think he would allow one of the men named in the archive to destroy it?" The doors locked. Gas hissed through the vents. "Nut poison, a sedative." Vittorio stumbled. Hannah held her breath and completed the scan. Selective release authorized. The evidence transmitted. Files left the vineyard in thousands of encrypted fragments, spreading to investigators, journalists, human rights organizations, and protected servers across the world. The 5 families' secrets could no longer be contained. Vittorio collapsed. Hannah opened the door and ran back through the tunnel. The chapel had fallen silent. Surviving attackers had surrendered. Smoke moved across the ruins. Luca lay where she had left him. A medic pressed both hands against his wound. Hannah dropped beside him. His face was pale. "Did you do it?" he whispered. "Yes." "Good." His eyes began to close. "No." Hannah touched his face. "You do not get to order me to survive and then leave." A faint smile touched his mouth. "That sounds like an order." "It is." His hand found hers. The helicopter arrived 4 minutes later. Luca remained conscious until they reached the hospital in Florence. Then the doors closed between them. Hannah stood in the private corridor with his blood drying on her clothes. Matteo sat across from her, his arm in a sling. "You know," he said, "he threatened to destroy my entire family because I complimented your eyes." Hannah looked at him. "This is not the time. I am trying to reassure you. It's not working." Matteo leaned his head against the wall. "Luca does not surrender anything. Not territory, not power, not grief. Today he surrendered all three. Hannah looked toward the operating room. What happens now? To the families? To everyone. Arrests. Assassinations. Trials. Men pretending they were innocent. Politicians resigning for health reasons. Matteo's expression became serious. And Luca will be blamed by every survivor. He has no organization left. He still has loyal men. Enough to protect him? Matteo looked at her. Perhaps. And me? No. The word settled between them. You are the woman who opened the archive, he continued. Some will call you courageous. Others will call you a traitor. A few will try to kill you for the rest of your life. Hannah wrapped her arms around herself. Then why did my father leave this to me? Because he believed you would choose better than we did. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Luca survived. For 3 days, he remained unconscious. Hannah refused to leave. She slept in a chair beside his bed, answering questions from American officials and Italian prosecutors. The selective release had protected most witnesses, though emergency relocations were underway across Europe. News channels showed raids on villas, government offices, banks, and ports. 5 criminal dynasties began collapsing in real time. On the 4th morning, Hannah woke to find Luca watching her. His eyes were tired but clear. You stayed, he said. She sat upright. You were shot. That has happened before. You dissolved a criminal empire. That was new. Emotion rose in her throat. You frightened me. His gaze moved over her face. I know. You almost died. Yes. And you are still answering in single words. I was shot. Despite everything, a laugh escaped her. Lucas stared at her, as though the sound was something sacred. Hannah took his hand. What happens to you now? I give testimony. Will you go to prison? Possibly. For how long? I do not know. She looked down at their joined hands. Luca's thumb moved slowly across her knuckles. You should return to Boston, he said. Her head lifted. What? My enemies will look for leverage. You destroyed your organization for me, and now you want me to leave. Yes. Why? Because loving you has made me careless. The word hung between them. Loving. Luca looked away, as though saying it had exposed something more dangerous than blood. Hannah stood. Look at me. He did. You do not get to make this decision alone. I do if the decision keeps you alive. My father made that choice. He hid the truth, built a safe life, and still died. I spent 12 years believing his death meant nothing. It meant you survived. Survival is not the same as living. Luca's expression tightened. Hannah leaned closer. I was lonely in those photographs because I built a life small enough to feel safe. I restored other people's histories because I was afraid to create one that could be taken from me. He said nothing. You saw me, she continued. Before I knew you existed, you saw me. That does not excuse the surveillance. It does not erase what you have done. But I will not pretend I feel nothing because feeling something is dangerous. Hannah, no. You speak calmly, issue orders, and expect the world to obey because fear has always worked for you. It will not work with me. His eyes darkened. What will? The truth. Luca's control broke. I love you. The words were quiet. Absolute. More powerful, because they cost him. I love you with every violent and ruined part of me, he said. I loved you before I touched you. Before you knew my name. I loved the woman in the photographs who carried grocery bags for an elderly neighbor in the snow, the woman who argued with museum directors when they ignored the work of forgotten women, the woman who smiled as if she needed permission and never understood that men turned to watch her leave. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. I do not know how to love gently, he continued. I know how to protect, possess, eliminate, and endure. I know how to build walls around what matters, but you would suffocate inside them. Then don't build walls. I may fail. Then fail honestly. He looked at her for a long moment. And if prison takes years, I will decide what I can endure. And if my enemies come, we face them with the truth you chose. His fingers tightened around hers. You make everything sound possible. No, I make it sound like a choice. Luca lifted a hand to his mouth. He pressed a kiss against her palm. Not possessive. Reverent. I choose you, he whispered. 8 months later, Luca De Santis entered a federal cooperation agreement with Italian and international authorities. His testimony led to more than 200 arrests. He admitted to crimes committed under his leadership and accepted a sentence of 5 years, reduced because of his cooperation, the dissolution of his organization, and the evidence he had voluntarily surrendered. Hannah visited him every week. She never romanticized the prison walls. She never pretended love erased consequence. Luca did not ask her to. Tenuta Belladonna was restored using funds from the Restitution Trust. Part of the vineyard became a protected archive, dedicated to victims whose stories had been buried by the 5 families. The remaining land produced wine again. Hannah named the first vintage Verita, Truth. 3 years into Luca's sentence, he was released early after preventing an assassination attempt against a prosecutor from inside the prison network. He returned to the vineyard at dusk. No convoy waited for him. No armed guards lined the road. He arrived in a simple black car driven by Matteo Belandi, who had somehow transformed from rival mafia heir into an insufferably loyal family friend. Hannah stood beneath the cypress trees. She wore a deep green dress that moved softly in the evening breeze. Her auburn hair fell over her shoulders. She looked fuller, stronger, more certain than the woman who had arrived in Tuscany believing she was inheriting only abandoned vines. Luca stepped from the car. For a moment, neither of them moved. Years of letters, prison glass, interrupted touches, and restrained longing stood between them. Then Hannah walked toward him. Luca met her halfway. He stopped, inches away. Even after everything, he waited. Hannah placed her hand against his scarred cheek. "You can touch me," she whispered. His restraint disappeared. Luca pulled her against him and kissed her beneath the darkening sky. The kiss carried no panic this time. No gunfire. No blood. Only the fierce tenderness of 2 people who had chosen love without pretending it was simple. When they separated, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "You kept the vineyard. I improved it. I noticed you no longer own an empire." "No. How does that feel?" He looked across the hills. Workers moved among the vines. Lights glowed inside the restored house. Near the old chapel stood a memorial engraved with the names of those whose evidence had helped bring down the families. "Quiet," he said. "You hate quiet." "I used to." Hannah smiled. He looked at her, as though 3 years had done nothing to lessen his obsession. Perhaps they had refined it. "What?" she asked. "I imagined this moment every night. And you were wearing blue." She laughed. The sound moved through the vineyard. Luca's expression softened. There was still darkness in him. There would always be. Love had not transformed him into an innocent man, and Hannah had never required that lie. It had transformed his choices. That was harder. That was real. He reached into his coat and removed the old photograph of their fathers. The edges were worn now. Hannah looked at the 3 figures outside the church. "My father believed you might become better than the empire," she said. "He was wrong about many things, but not that." Luca turned the photograph over. On the back, beneath writing they had seen before, another message had appeared where age and handling had faded the paper. Hannah read it aloud. "When the vineyard opens, the debt between our families ends. What begins afterward must be chosen freely." Her eyes filled. Luca took her hand. "No debts," he said. "No secrets. No cash." She raised an eyebrow. "No surveillance reports." His mouth tightened. "I have accepted many unreasonable conditions. Luca, no surveillance report. They walked toward the house together. At the edge of the vineyard, the ancient stone cellar door stood open. Inside, most of the black safes had been removed. The remaining records were preserved behind glass, catalogued not as weapons, but as history. At the center of the chamber stood one final unopened safe. Hannah had discovered it a month earlier. It bore no family name, only a date 7 years in the future. Luca stopped when he saw it. "What is that? I was hoping you knew." "I do not." Hannah touched the lock. A small screen illuminated. 2 words appeared. "Second archive." Beneath them, a countdown began. Luca stared at it. Hannah looked at him. "You said you wanted a quiet life." "I did." The steel door clicked open. Inside lay a single black envelope marked with the seal of a family neither of them recognized. From somewhere deep beneath the vineyard came the sound of machinery awakening. Luca drew Hannah behind him on instinct. She caught his hand and stepped back to his side. Not behind him, beside him. The lights flickered across the underground chamber. Whatever secret her father had buried last was waiting. And this time, Hannah Reed did not feel like an ordinary woman who had wandered into a dangerous world. She was the woman who had survived it. The woman a mafia boss had destroyed an empire to protect. The woman who had taught that same man that devotion was not possession, sacrifice was not weakness, and love meant choosing someone even when there was nothing left to gain. Luca looked at her. "Ready?" Hannah tightened her fingers around his. "No." A slow, dangerous smile touched his mouth. "Neither am I." Together, they opened the envelope.